What's going on, everybody? It's Dan, Moonshine, the Hillbilly Hellraiser. How you doing? I'm doing all right. Can't really complain. It's cold as can be for Florida currently. It's in the mid 40s, upper 50s, which is cold for Florida right now. We got a little bit of a cold spell, which is fine. I enjoy the cold, but as you can see, I had to prepare for it, and with my beanie and wearing a long sleeve underneath this sweet That Goat Metal Show shirt. And yeah, I figured I would hop on here real quick and do something I haven't done in a little while. Do a little watch along of one of my matches. I figured I would be a self-aggrandizing jackass and talk to you about something that I did in the way back when. Yeah, other than that, all is well. As far as things go, a little banged up, but other than that, all is well. Can't really complain too much. Staying busy, getting to go to the gym and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, man, I had some free time, so I figured I would do this. I'm in the process of doing a couple other things. I got a couple of reviews coming up. Gonna check out some new albums. I know the new Creator just came out, so I figured I would check that out. Do a couple other smaller band stuff that's coming out, and yeah, some pretty cool stuff. And then I was thinking that maybe I might I might put a poll out and see if anybody is interested in me doing any specific album rankings. Meaning, I was thinking about putting a couple band names out there of some of my favorite bands and seeing if anybody would be interested in me doing an album ranking of them. That's pretty much the idea. I think this year probably I'm going to do a couple of those based on some of my favorite bands are putting stuff out this year. So I figured I would do it that way. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of the plan. Barring any sort of major obstacles in my life, that's kind of the plan. So yeah, man. So let's get into this. So what we're going to talk about today is it's a match that took place in March of 2009. This took place at a place called the Temple Terrace Rec Center in Tampa, Florida. Temple Terrace is like a subset of northern Tampa, the northern Tampa area. It's a little bit south of that, but it's its own little subsect of Tampa called Temple Terrace. And the story behind the building is a lot of the companies that I used to work for back in that era, we used to run there a lot. We would run a few student shows. We would run. I used to primarily work for a company called EWE, Elite Wrestling Entertainment, which was run by my buddy Steve Madison, this is who I'm in the match with, and another friend of ours, Buck Quartermain. Buck is very well known, very well respected, well regarded journeyman wrestler from down here. He's been all over the world. He's done more and seen more than most people. Gave his body to the business. Ended up having to get not put his business out there too much, but he had to get some major work done as far as surgeries go to kind of fix himself up from being all banged up from wrestling. But he's a good dude, one of the tougher dudes I know in the business. Definitely he's on a very, I wouldn't say a short list because that's very presumptive myself, but he's on a list of people that I would not mess with at all. I wouldn't recommend people mess with him. He's one of the tougher dudes that I've met in the business. But they used to run a promotion called Elite Wrestling Entertainment. And they were both current guys. If you follow my channel at any length and you've heard me talk about wrestling, where I came from the Malenko school, the Malenko camp, and we used to share a building with the Kern guys, with the Kern camp. So they were Kern guys. I was a Malenko guy. I've known both guys for a long time. Steve, since he got in the business, and he's always been one of my biggest advocates. Always put me over with various promoters and people. He's the one who came up with my hillbilly gimmick. And yeah, he's a good dude. He's very talented. But they had a promotion called EWE. eventually they got jobs. What happened was Kern, who was a producer for WWE at the time, he came off the road, and WWE decided that they wanted to fold up their tents and pull up stakes in both Kentucky with OVW and Deep South Pro Wrestling in Georgia. They wanted to move the entire operation developmental wise down to Florida. So they wound up in Tampa, took over Kern's school, dissolved all that. It became Florida Championship Wrestling. And then over time, it wound up in Orlando and became NXT. So that's the story behind that. Excuse me. Sorry. A little belch there. Gross, but they both, Steve and Buck, both got jobs for a little while. And then eventually they wound up back on the indies. They restarted EWE, but they had renamed it to WFC, which was acronym for Wrestling for a Cause. It was a nonprofit wrestling organization that they were doing at the time. And we'd also hooked up with another promotion called Pro Wrestling Fusion, which was a South Florida-based one run by a guy named Joe Cabibo, who wrestled as the Sheik. Joey Machete, I think he used to be in a team called the Market Crashers. So I've got a match on here with NASDAQ and Dow Jones. Very cool dude. Got good taste in music. Share a lot of similar taste in music with him. If you're ever on Discogs, he's got a thing on there called War of Sound, I believe is the name of it. If you ever want to check out his page on Discogs, his marketplace or his store, then yeah, that's Joe. That's Cabibo. But yeah, man. So we would do these little spot shows here and there. A lot of them would be like student showcase events. You get a couple of guys that were either veteran guys or maybe a little bit bigger name on the indies around here. And that would be kind of the deal. You'd pair them up with the younger guys, or you just give some of the younger guys a chance to do stuff. So on a lot of these shows, I always wound up in like higher positions or like higher up on the card, just because compared to the students, I was a little bit higher up on the pecking order. But then whenever I would work on the proper shows, I was usually on the undercard, either opening match or somewhere in the middle. But I always, in my time in the business, I always figured that, at least with the Moonshine McCoy character, it was more of an attraction versus I always felt like I got over, and it was one of those things where I thought it was always something that could be featured prominently on the card, but it was more of an attraction, like a George Steele or an Andre the Giant. It wasn't something that you necessarily had to plug into the main event angle or whatever was going on there, the championship run or race, the fight for the title or anything like that. It was more like you'd plug that character in. You could put that personality anywhere on the card with anybody, and it would be something that would be entertaining for everybody. The kids would enjoy it because it was all the goofy ass hillbilly stuff that I did. Parents, kids of all ages would enjoy it. They just because all the goofy stuff that I do. If I did more of a heel character, I could kind of get a little bit rougher and stuff like that. But it was always one of those things where you never really there didn't have to be necessarily a reason for Moonshine, talk myself like a schizo in third person to be on the show. So that, just kind of give you an idea. So anyhow, so this was a match that was part of a heavyweight tournament that we did. Both Madison and I won our preliminary bouts, and this was the lead up. So yeah, man, let's get into this. He's since passed away, but longtime announcer around here, used to do lots of stuff as far as websites and things of that nature. And this was kind of a transitory thing for me, where I was going from doing actual pro gimmick from the hillbilly gimmick. So that's kind of why you see the deal. Yeah, we see. This is the building. The rec center is cut off in half right now because we didn't draw nearly as well. It's a pretty good draw. You can't really see over in this area, but this is the only spot on this side of the ring that's empty. But this whole thing is packed out, and we always used to do really well. But on the bigger shows, we would have this entire thing opened up, and we would do really, really well. We'd probably get like 500, 600, 700 people showing up at these events. And this one, we probably had like maybe a couple of hundred. So it's still not bad by indie standards. I always used to say that we were the best drawing promotion that nobody ever knew of. Nobody ever cared about. Yeah, that's Steve. Steve's the man. And I'll just kind of go through this. I might stop periodically just to mention something, but yeah, here we go. Steve's so smooth in the ring, such a great ring general. Here he is just trying to blow me up, get me all winded. He did a very good job of that most of the time. See, for whatever reason, there came this point in time where I used to be able to take a good bump out of the ring, and then somewhere along the way, I just lost it. And I would always do something goofy like catch my foot on the top rope or like I did right there, hit my back. And it always looked ugly, but it is what it is. Sometimes when you're not in there enough, you tend to lose a step or two. And that was kind of like my issue. Plus I was a little probably too laid back at times. And Dean always used to tell me way back in the day, you got to stay on your toes, always be on your toes in wrestling, which is a very profound statement. I think not just for wrestling, but yeah, sometimes I wouldn't do that. And a bump like that would be the result. Kids screaming about how awful I am isn't very nice of them. All these pretty young ladies in the crowd, they were friends of the guy who was, his name was Banff, another guy who's also not with us anymore, Mike Eason, badass mofo. And he always used to bring a ton of pretty women with him to the shows. He was not a very good wrestler, but he could draw. And we had a few guys like that who they weren't the greatest workers in ring, but they were marketable and they could draw. So we would always get pretty good crowds having them on the shows. And they were talented enough where with the right people, you could get them to a match. Little kid being nice and setting the chair back up. Stiff shot for no reason. I don't quite remember what Steve had planned there, but it wound up with us on the outside. Now there, you can't really see it from this angle, but I missed him by a country mile with that boot. It was a combination of I'm pretty blind without my glasses on. He can't see without his glasses. But I also never wanted to potato him with my foot in the head. So I would potato him with hit him with shots and forearms and stuff like that. He'd be like, gosh, damn, you're stiff. But as far as kicking him in the head or kicking anybody in the head, I was always trying to avoid that. Always hit people snug in safe places was the idea. Hit them hard in safe places was always kind of the general idea. There was not so much consideration put towards his health and well-being. Nor is this. As I'm choking him, he's saying to me how much he hates me. And he probably legit meant that. I think Steve always loved putting me over as far as being a talent, but then he would always regret it whenever he got in the ring with me. It's because I was always a bit off. In probably more ways than one. Probably working the crowd a little bit more, getting them all riled up. But, you get in a heated moment, you don't think of these things. Right now, giving him a freestyle bite to the forehead while I'm doing the rear choke. That was a pretty smooth transition, if I may say so myself. I thought that was pretty good. The rear chin lock into the camel clutch, followed up with a crossface, turn him over, and whoopee cushion. Follow up with a Greco-Roman chokehold. Another Greco-Roman chokehold using the rope. Here's one of my favorite moves I like using, the old boss man special. Well, it's time to be a jackass. Uh-oh. Your boy may be in trouble. I probably should have been bumping a lot sooner than that, but, you know, it is what it is. Whoa. Uh-oh. Ah. Let's see that again. At this point, two things are happening. One, I think Steve is just kind of leaning over me. You know, we're both chit-chatting a little bit, but he's also leaning over to make sure I didn't hit my head and that I was all right. And I'm sitting there lying there thinking to myself, you know what? I string together a couple of good matches at this point, and it was one of those deals where I told myself that if I could have just walked away at that point, I'd have been happy with everything I'd accomplished up to that point. But as we know, I didn't do that, and then it wound up in a very tragic scenario. But it is what it is. But yeah, this was one at this time I was kind of in a phase of my life where I was feeling like maybe it was time to stop wrestling completely and completely focus on my professional work. And yeah, so it was one of those deals where I just I could have, you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda, wonderful words, but had I walked away at this point, I would have been happy and content with everything that I had done in the business, even though I never got to do anything major or work for any of the major promotions. But as far as on the small scale that I did it, I would have been pleased as punch to have done what I did at this point. Yeah, Steve just checking on that thing. Yeah, Steve's a fantastic wrestler. If you want to check out, just pull up his name in the YouTube search engine, and there's a ton of great matches with him. I'm stumbling and fumbling around. Billy was kind enough to pick up all my crap. The locker room's that way. Kids still tell me how awful I am. It's not very nice of them, considering I just got doinked on my head. Yeah, it was cool. The locker room's that way, and I walk that way because that's just what I did. One of my buddies, who's also no longer with us, Frankie Capone, used to refer to me as the bargain basement Sandman because I'd always walk through the crowd or around the crowd and all that sort of thing. But yeah, man, that was my match. Me and Steve Madison, one of my favorite opponents in the time I spent in the business. Very cool dude, good taste in music, talented wrestler all around. Can't say enough good things about him. So yeah, man, that was my little watch along deal. Hope you enjoyed it. Kept it under 20 minutes. That's pretty cool. So yeah, but I got some stuff coming up. I'll keep you posted, and it'll be up whenever it's up, and once I'm able to find the time to do it. But yeah, man, that's what I got for you. So this is Dan Moonshine, the Hillbilly Hellraiser, thanking you for joining me for another Moonshine Talking. And as always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck a chin upon impact. Everybody, keep head banging and iron slang, and take it easy, and I will catch you on the next video. Later.